Good evening, and welcome to another exciting episode of Agent Paranormal. I'm being sarcastic. It's really not altogether exciting, but how's everyone doing? It's a week out from Halloween, and we are back in the studio for our last episode of October. Next to me is Travis. Say hello, Travis.
Hello, Travis.
Okay, I was expecting that. Behind the console was Kevin, doing his thing, spinning the hits for you, doing his VJ thing. And so, welcome. So we thought we'd do a little bit different episode tonight compared to what we normally do. No guests. Well, Travis is kind of a guest. Travis, you look nervous. I noticed when I look on the screen, you're like, please don't call on me. Please don't call on me.
I tell you what, these cameras do no justice to that shirt you're wearing, because that is actually a more vibrant green than what we're seeing on the screen.
Yeah, it doesn't even look green on the screen. It looks kind of like
Not really.
white with a little, like, I don't know, weird tint to it.
You gotta throw some black lights on it. Really make it pop.
It starts dancing for you. You look at it. So tonight, we want to go off the grid a little bit. Instead of talking about the paranormal as far as cases and terminology, and investigations, and things of that nature, we want to talk about something that's always near and dear to all of us, and that's horror movies. And not just horror movies, but paranormal-influenced horror movies. I think just about everyone in the paranormal, well, I probably shouldn't reach that far, but everyone in our group anyways is a horror movie fan. And I know this because the message threads that go back and forth, especially 3 weeks prior out to Halloween, is just all Michael Myers memes and, well, at least from me and Travis anyways, I've seen it. Kevin's more like kind of like the Friday the 13th Jason memes. And so we kind of go back and forth. We're all very excited.
I got big love for Michael. I'm not going to knock him.
Well, you know, I just saw Halloween Kills. I'm not going to give any spoiler alerts, but go see it. But this guy is just incredible, the way that he can get stabbed, beaten, and hit by cars and shot and, you know, have his arm cut off, but he still comes back for another episode of Halloween and kills hundreds of people. It's just absolutely amazing. You'd expect that from, like, Friday the 13th, because that's like a supernatural, like, demonic figure or something. Yet, you know what? They've never called John Zaffis to fight Jason. They've always kind of fought him with, like, whatever's in the woodshed at Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah, they deliver the weapons to him that they're going to kill.
Right,
get killed
exactly. Exactly. What if they call somebody like John Zaffis out there, and he could run out there with a crucifix and some holy water and stuff? I would pay to see
He's
that.
going to throw a haunted mirror at him? Or?
Raggedy Ann doll.
Oh, yeah? Meet Annabelle. That could change the whole entire series, the whole franchise.
That'd be a great movie. You know, Annabelle doll gets thrown at Freddy Krueger, and he's like, what is this?
Yeah, then tears him to pieces. But the thing about the Annabelle doll is that, I mean, other than you watch the Conjuring movie series, the Annabelle doll doesn't look anything like that. I think if it looked like that, I think people would have ran from it to begin with.
Yeah.
But it looks just like a Raggedy Ann doll, pretty much.
Yeah, so why don't we just start right there?
Oh, see how the segue I brought in?
Boom.
Look at that, huh?
It's almost like you
Boom.
planned it.
I didn't, though. I really didn't. Okay, Annabelle. So we're going to talk about how many movies, Kevin, are we going to touch on tonight?
I have 8 loaded up, but we can talk about as many as we want. We just won't have visuals for any of them outside the 8.
All right. Well, let's stick with the 8 since we got the visuals and everything, and they kind of are related to kind of what we do. And Travis, I'm sorry, we don't have the Evil Dead.
Well, you know.
Or the Evil Dead 2.
Bruce is the man.
I tried to stick with...
Or Army of Darkness.
Yeah, I tried to stick with movies that were either based on real events or could possibly be based on actual events.
You don't think that Evil Dead could really happen?
Well, maybe, you know.
I mean, the Necronomicon is kind of a book.
Yeah, I've thought about cutting off my arm and slapping a chainsaw on it. So.
Well, who hasn't really?
I mean, that's... who was the girl in one of those, not Quentin Tarantino movies, but the other guy there, Robert Rodriguez or whatever? Didn't he have, like, a movie of zombies?
Rose McGowan.
Yeah, and she had, like... Didn't she have, like, a chainsaw or something?
No, it was an M16.
An M16 for leg. Yeah. Sweet.
All right, so... let's hop right into what you were talking about with Annabelle. We'll do a little...
The magic of transitions.
This is fun.
Yeah, baby. This is amazing.
All right, so Annabelle.
Don't know her.
Don't know her?
No, never met her.
You never got to go down the Warrens?
No, I have not been to the Warrens Museum. I have been to John Zappas' museum, and he's got a lot of creepy stuff. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's got a huge section of his house dedicated to all these items that are I consider them troublemaking items.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're there because they're causing problems. Now he's got them all there in cases and everything else, and I'm sure there's binding spells and all kinds of stuff. So it's just sort of weird to walk through and see all this stuff. I mean, it looks like kind of like like there's robes and weird swords and all kinds of stuff, So you just kind of walk by and it just looks like harmless, like collectibles, like medieval collectibles or something. But there's the items there. Have you ever like grabbed one and pulled it away from whatever's keeping it at bay? God knows what would happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
obviously, John's museum is pretty much because of his Uncle Ed, who had his museum before John.
Right.
And then I think John just kind of picked up that collecting idea. But, I mean, we also understand that sometimes you just need to get the objects away from people. And
Yeah, put them where they won't do any harm.
Ed can't take them all, and John works his own cases, so.
Right. But just think about the service that he's providing the world. I mean, he's taken these items and put them into his own home to keep them safe from people. I mean, there's going out and helping an old lady walk across the street, or helping in an animal shelter, which is all completely honorable things to do. But this guy's taking something that's causing havoc, and it has bad energy, and he's taking it and putting it someplace to keep it safe.
Not just someplace, his house.
Right. All I can think of is like the movie 13 Ghosts. When they're all those ghosts are put in pens that had some type of energy shield to keep them at bay. Then something happened, they all escaped. But I mean, God, what would happen?
I mean, let's hold on to 13 Ghosts right now. That's not one of the movies that I have up, but I mean, 13 Ghosts is actually a pretty good idea for ghosts. I mean, not so much on the the gory bludgeoning of everybody end, but more of oh my God, the actor,
Tony Shalhoub?
No, the
the uncle?
Shaggy.
Oh,
oh yeah, he played Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo remake.
Yeah,
right? The actual movie.
Oh my God! If anyone,
he was in Scream and a few other movies too.
Anybody in the thread can help me out with that. He played the
psychic.
He played the psychic in the movie.
Yeah. What the heck was his name?
Oh my God, we met him too.
Yeah.
We
he
met
had
him
the
at
glasses. He had the glasses where you could see the ghosts when you put them on. So,
but okay. Anyways, we'll go back to Annabelle. So let's talk a little bit about the actual Annabelle compared to the movie. Obviously, a lot of these movies that we're going to talk about were severely embellished for many scenes. Matthew Lillard. Thank you, Pete. He said Matthew, but I got the Lillard part. So they're obviously really embellished in some points. Annabelle, as we talked about before, was actually a Raggedy Ann doll.
But that wouldn't make a frightening movie.
No.
Stay away from me. There's just a Raggedy Ann doll, just sitting there looking with just like that.
I personally think that a Raggedy Ann doll would be a little bit more frightening than the actual doll that they used. I mean, the empty eyes of the Raggedy Ann doll seem a little bit more to me.
Well, apparently Hollywood didn't agree. So they went with a much, they went the Chucky
Utica,
route.
New York,
right. Yeah. And they went the Chucky route. Let's make it terrifying. But the problem is that the stories in their own right are terrifying enough, but to make it watchable and make it into a scary movie, like you said, they have to embellish everything. Mm-hmm. They have to throw in the effects, and they have to basically, you want to see the film. I mean, sometimes the true stories, though frightening they may be, are probably relatively boring, and they go over a very long period of time. I mean, a case could take 10 years, but if you watch the movie, they can, in 90 minutes, the whole, everything happens over a period of a week or so.
They take the highlights of those 10 years and condense them to an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some people about some of these cases, and a lot of stuff happened, but it wasn't as obvious like you could, like a monster appeared out of a wall and melted the candle in front of people, and they're all screaming and running. But when they left the room and came back, the candle was melted.
Yep.
So by all rights, that's frightening enough, but it's not Hollywood frightening where people would be like,
yeah. Hollywood wants to show you. They want to put it in your face and show you how frightening it is.
Right.
Yeah, they need the visuals. They can't.
Right.
So it's like, we can't tell them that you weren't in the room. There's just say somebody switched the candle.
Right.
Show them that you were in the room and you watched the candle go.
Exactly. Well, Annabelle, is probably, I don't even know if Annabelle is the most terrifying, most powerful item that the Warrens had, but it's definitely the most well-known and the most famous.
Yeah.
By far.
Well, because it's a child's toy that became part of this like super, popular case.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, before the movie came out, there's nobody in regular society that would ever have known about this case.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, when I first started researching and I found out about Annabelle, I was like, oh, Jesus. I didn't realize that this kind of thing can happen. And then all of a sudden, ooh, Robert the Doll.
Robert the Doll is another,
Like, sorry, Robert. I'm sorry if I didn't get permission to talk about you, but.
That was just pictures.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've got Annabelle. There was some stuff. I mean, they did talk about there was some markings and writings on the floor of the actual case. Mm-hmm.
There was a nursing student that ended up with Annabelle Doll.
Pete just yelled at me for saying his name. There was at one point the male involved in the case had a dream that he was being strangled by Annabelle, and woke up and she was in the room. In which I think in the Hollywood movie they actually showed the doll strangling him. But
and I believe it was the mother that actually brought it.
Yeah, the mother gave it to one of the. She found it somewhere and gave it to her daughter.
But I'd just like to know why the object had such horrible energy, the origin of it, why it was a cursed object that had so much. And I don't think people really truly understand this. And
it could be another movie.
I've only come across this once.
Origins.
That I can remember, but we did a case here locally where there was a lot of activity in the house. Another paranormal group got called in for us because they didn't know who we were, and this group came in, did an investigation, brought in a psychic medium. They went up to the upstairs and they said, oh, "This closet is a gateway to hell." Okay, so of course that's going to freak out the homeowners. They're like, "Sell it, we're out of here." I mean. Who wants to live in a place where the closet upstairs are going to put your linens is a gateway to hell? So we got called
for a green room.
Yeah, I know. We got called up because there's activity again, and they said, "Can you please help us?" So we came out, and so after we heard the story, we did what any caring, smart group would do. We put Pete into the closet and locked him in there, and. He was in there for probably about 45 minutes. And folks, quite honestly, we opened the door. We were quite surprised to see he was just sitting there, with his equipment, doing EVP sessions. Or, he did not meet the devil or any demons. And so I think based on that alone, I think we pretty much debunked the gateway to hell.
I mean, he hovers when he walks now.
I mean, he'll just turn his head once in a while and say, "Hail Satan," like that. But other than that, he's okay. But we did find out is, as we were walking around the house doing readings, we came across a little table, like a little table like this. Nothing fancy. And there was a pair of scissors, steel scissors, kind of rusted because they're old. And like an old woman's shoe. It looked like it was, leather shoe from maybe like the 1800s. Okay. You could just tell it was old. And I had two K2s in my hand, and the K2s pegged red, which is about the same amount of energy a microwave oven would be if you're standing next to it and put your K2s up to it. And the first thing I said to the guys, I think you got an unshielded cable on the other side of this wall. And he goes, there's no power on the other side of the wall. I go, let's see. So we went into the door, and here's this big empty room that he gutted. So everything was out of it. And there's no power in the room whatsoever. And then came back around, and I'm like, these objects, where'd you get them? He goes, they were in the walls of the house. As I was pulling all the lath and plaster out, I found the scissors. I found the shoe. Now, most people would have been just like, oh, in the dumpster, you know? But he kept it. I don't know if he thought it was kind of cool because it was an old rustic farmhouse, or something kind of, I guess, made him a decision for him to keep these things here. But that we found was the cause of the haunting, that these two objects emitted a tremendous amount of energy. And when we tried to remove them, a lot of weird things happened. And then once we removed them, all the activity in the place stopped. So are they cursed, or they just have something attached to them? I think it just has something attached to them. Now, swinging around back to Annabelle, Annabelle's got more than something just attached to it. It's like,
yeah,
if it's got that much controversy and bad stuff going around, I think it's like a curse. I mean, someone had it that, for all intents and purposes, wanted that thing to cause harm, or whatever's attached to it wants it to cause harm. So
The big D word.
Oh,
yes, so that's my whole spin on the Annabelle thing.
Todd, I'm going to need a graphic here for when I say the big D word that can pop up and be like, the big D word.
Well, why don't you go to Google and type in the big D and let me know what comes up.
Don't go to Goggle, though.
I'm going to be laughing so hard when you type that in and my face pops up.
The big D.
All right, so let's swing back and we'll talk a little bit about 13 Ghosts. There's not a lot about that movie that we can really bring up, but what I really want to bring up is Matthew Lillard's character and him being a psychic in the movie, because the way he acts and the way he, it's not like every Hollywood movie where they say it's a psychic and the psychic medium can actually see the ghost and talk to the ghost. Is for him, it's literally just a feeling. He gets like a pain in the back of his head. And I thought that was an awesome take on it, because it was more realistic than a lot of stuff that we've actually seen in movies.
But wasn't he helping the guy? I think the guy's name was Cyrus, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Uncle Cyrus, yeah.
And he was helping him trap these ghosts, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So he was almost kind of like the little mechanism that was like the GPS, if you will,
Yep.
to locate these ghosts, and then he would trap them. That's what Matthew Lillard did. That
Yeah.
he was, and he had that connection where like he could sense him and feel him and stuff, but he couldn't see him. Obviously,
He couldn't talk to him,
he
yeah.
did it because Cyrus was paying him a ton of money.
Yep.
And basically he didn't pay him a ton of money, and that's why he came back. But he also kind of switched and decided he wanted to help
Tony
Shalhoub's character in the family and try and get him out of the house, because he understood what Cyrus was actually doing with him.
right.
But again, back to that. I mean, I can't see anybody actually being able to collect a ghost like maybe Zaphis does.
Wasn't there a paranormal show on TV with those guys down in Tennessee, the Wraith Chasers?
Wraith
or
Chasers.
whatever?
Yeah.
Tennessee
Weren't they
Wraith
trying
Chasers.
to build a capacitor thing that would trap the energy of a spirit or
Was
something?
that the group that actually went on the live investigation with Ghost Hunters, and they actually, was it Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures?
Probably
Ghost Adventures.
Yeah, where they actually had like a trap. It looked almost like the case that they used in 13 Ghosts when they were catching the Juggernaut, in which they were trying to coax a ghost into it, and they said they were using enough energy that they might be able to trap it in there.
Yeah, that was their gimmick. Every show they tried to do something where they could trap a ghost or.
They said like a capacitor,
The flux capacitor.
right?
Helps
Yeah,
it go
flux.
back in time.
Yeah, a flux capacitor basically stores energy, and they would take that energy and boom, it would be trapped in there and hold on to it, and then somehow they would have to figure out a way to keep it there for long periods of time. But what are they going to do with it? I mean, quite honestly, they could have just went to a haunted museum and borrowed one of those objects, and then there you go. Problem solved. Now they got energy and they can put it in a little box. But if you think about it, isn't that what they're doing with Annabelle and what Zaphis is doing with haunted objects? He's taking them, they're putting bindings or whatever, and keeping them,
They did it with Annabelle. They put her in a case. They had priests come and bless it, and they did a lot of different things, like you said, probably some sigils and crucifixes and everything to help bind that.
Yeah, they just don't have like those old like runic type symbols all over it, like they do in 13 Ghosts. But
again, Hollywood.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
Let's hop on to. We were talking about Zaphis. Might as well.
A Haunting in Connecticut. I was very disappointed that they didn't have a Zaphis character in this movie. They, I think they traded him out for, it was a priest.
The priest.
Yeah.
It was a priest.
Yeah.
But if we go back in our episode where we were talking to Carmen Reed, the priest was actually living upstairs, wasn't he? There was a priest that actually lived in the second floor.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. Yeah, it was like a boarder. Yeah.
And so he...
and they don't talk about that in the movie either, that there was somebody else that actually lived in the same exact house as them.
So a holy man was living up above him and had no idea all this was going on.
Everything's fine.
Now, the movie itself, when the bodies came on the wall and everything...
Yep. Carmen did bring that up.
Yeah,
that was one of the questions we asked her. So I'm going to encourage all of our viewers that if you have not seen that episode, go on to Disruption Network if you're not already on there, and go back, check out our episode where we actually had the long conversation with Carmen Reed, because that was a great conversation with her.
Yeah, she's she went through hell with those cases, and thank God there are people out there like the Warrens and John Zaffis that could help her. I mean, this is going back before we were even thinking of anything like that. Mm-hmm. That those people had the know-how, the tools, but not only that, the ability to want to care and help. You know what I mean? I mean, come on. They faced some pretty, nasty stuff in that case, and basically to help that family. Now, the movie itself, to me, was, I don't know, I didn't care for it. However, did you see the documentary on the Discovery Channel?
Yes.
That was probably one of the kind of the scariest documentaries, I thought. I mean, they did a really good job, and was always just like the atmosphere they created was always just John Zaffis was sitting alone at the table.
What? It wasn't that long ago that Zaffis actually posted the image of the demon at the bottom of the stairs from that case.
Yeah.
From the documentary, and he's like, "Yep, this is the image that stays in my head." And I immediately commented, and I'm like, "That is the image of a demon that I would think I would see." Like, when the middle of the night, when you're like, I got to get up and take a leak, and you go to walk down the stairs, and you're staring down the stairs, and you're like, that's what I'm expecting to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a great job with that documentary, because that's one of those things that are stuck in my head.
But the thing about it was so scary about it, I recall from watching the case and talking to him a little bit, is like how it waited for him to be alone, and then it came to him and only him. So as he was experiencing this, there's no one he could reach out to. You could scream, "Oh my God!" and it's just there's nobody. It picks a moment to happen, and then it happens. But the documentary was, I have a director's cut of it, and without any commercials and stuff, and it's I watch it just about every October. It's just it's an incredible case. It really shows. Here's a group. They actually moved in with them for a while.
Yeah,
we're taking turns like staying there, monitoring activity. That's old school ghost hunting. The ghost hunters now, it's like, it's like 11. I got to get to work by 8. So
I'll leave this camera here. I'll see you in the morning.
We're going to take off. Good luck. We'll be back.
Actually, there was one part of that case where Zaffis actually did get frightened, where he left for a while.
Yeah.
But I think it was only a couple of days, and he ended up coming back and like, I need to go back and face this and take care of it. And he still, as far as I know, he still hasn't shared what he actually saw at that point.
Well, I think basically after an experience like this, that experience, it probably changes your perspective. Think, oh my God, what am I doing? I have a family. I'm a dad and and a husband. That's my number one job, to protect my family. And, you basically, and I think that's what it wanted to do. I think it wanted to scare them so bad to get out of it. If it can scare people out of it and they leave, then it has less people to confrontations with, less people to know what it is and what it does. And
that just kind of shows it truly is a calling for someone like John and stuff.
Yeah.
You really have to dig down into your faith to go back into a house that something like that scared you out of. Someone like John Zaffis, who's seen pretty much everything there is to see about this stuff, and it scared him out of the house.
Well, I think again, he hasn't told me this, but I think he's got a very strong conviction and strong faith. For most people who meet him, he's kind of he's a really fun guy. He's a ball breaker, this and that. But make no mistake about it. When it comes to stuff like this, he's got a very strong conviction and very strong faith. Mm-hmm. You have to. And, there's certain things that he's told me to help me in cases that are in that magnitude, which I've never really had the need to do any of it or act upon it because I've never been involved in anything like that. And if I ever did, I think he'd be one of the first people I would try to reach out to for assistance or help or something because, I mean, you're dealing with energy that's just uncontrollable. There's nothing you can do with that. I mean, it's just, so, yeah. So The Haunting, Connecticut. Watch the movie. It's entertaining. I thought it was entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
But watch the documentary if you can, and that really kind of gives you more of the truth of the actual story.
All right. Are we ready?
Let's do it. What's this? Oh.
The Blair Witch Project.
Scary as hell.
Love this movie.
It says.
Absolutely love this movie, though.
That was one of those things where everyone had to go run out and see this.
Yep.
It was being talked about. And everyone was saying, oh, my God, that kid still walking around the woods. It's in Maryland. And it's a true story. And, everyone's freaking out. So I had to go see it.
The marketing they did with sci-fi and everything.
Beautiful marketing campaign on that.
Low budget, kind of groundbreaking in how they did it, but I'm sure it did well at the box office. I'm sure it made a lot of money. You just think about it. If you spend $5,000 to make a movie and it made $50 million, that's an amazing ROI, right? I mean, that's incredible.
The main actress in it, Heather
Donahue. Yeah.
Her mother received hundreds of sympathy cards after the movie came out because people actually thought that this was real.
Yeah.
And even me, I thought it was real. I mean, I was a young kid at the time, but at the same time, it's I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is real. And all of a sudden, all three of the actors show up at the MTV Music Awards. And I'm like,
wait a minute. Yeah, it was at the time, it was, I mean, you had your found footage stuff like Cannibal Holocaust, where the director actually got arrested.
Yeah.
They thought it was so real, they thought the actors were actually killed. But other than that, there really wasn't anything, around the time that Blair Witch came out. That was kind of groundbreaking for the time. And unfortunately, the clones and everyone copying it, it's kind of really diluted that. But that was the first. That was the best.
Yeah, and, it was interesting meeting. I met two of the three at Scaricon. And remember, I was the celebrity coordinator, I guess. So I assisted in hiring the two of them to come to the show. And they were just super cool people. They really were super cool. And it put closure because, you watch the movie and everybody's like, well, it's all made up, this and that. But you don't see these people doing interviews or anything. So as far as you know, they're dead, right? And then you meet them in person at Scarecon, and and then you start asking them, and they're just like, oh, yeah, it was fun to make this and that. I'm like, weren't you scared in the woods and stuff? No, not really. There's a lot of people around. So we don't see as probably the 20, 35 people that are all surrounded with, with cameras and gear and all that kind of stuff. So
the production crew following around the woods.
Yeah. So
I could just imagine you, Rich, seeing them and running over and embracing them and being, I'm so glad you're alive.
Oh, thank God you're alive. So, well, at least I know two of them are alive. I don't know what happened to the other one. The one that
which
with the
ones
teeth.
Did you see?
The teeth were all over the place.
Oh, was that one you didn't see?
No, I didn't see
the guy with the beard.
Right, didn't see him.
So the only two that were we saw alive, you saw.
But it was weird. It was so creepy because they just found his teeth or something. Remember?
Yeah, and a little wrapped up. Was it a little piece of cloth as his shirt?
Hi, Jason.
Yeah, man. That the unknown, the messages that sent, teeth. It's just like, oh.
So let's talk about this in an actual paranormal investigation type scenario of investigating in the woods of a potential paranormal spot. That was actually pretty darn close to what we've experienced either on battlefields and stuff like that. Is you just disembodied voices, things just appearing out of
the
nowhere.
laughing children.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we ever got a phone call from someone who said, "Hey, we went out there doing a console investigation, and we said there's a couple guys that are missing. We found his teeth in a bag." And I was like, "Yeah, here's a card for another group. Give them a call."
Well, we won't go that far. But what I'm saying is, they didn't really go nuts into trying to really scare the people like Hollywood normally does.
No.
They really did keep it very, very practical, and that went very far.
Absolutely.
On their end.
Yeah, let your own imagination run with it.
Yep.
Which is kind of how it is when you're out there and it's dark and you think you hear something and all right,
Yep.
Is that a little kid laughing behind me? I think I'm noping right the hell out of here.
Yeah. So the woods are a scary place. It could be a little bit more, just as scary as being in a building or a home that's got paranormal activity, because there's a lot around you that you can't see, and at least in a house you have some confinement, like there's the door, but you got the safety of the walls around you. When you're in the woods, it's like there's 360 degrees you got to worry about. So yeah, I think everybody went camping after that movie. Basically, it's like going in swimming in a lake or an ocean after you saw Jaws. I mean, yeah, that's on your mind.
All right, we're ready for the next?
Sure.
Under.
Amityville Horror.
Get out.
That's a good one. That's the one that I watched when I was a kid with Marco Kidder.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we got the original.
Right. Not the Ryan Reynolds one.
I didn't mind the Ryan Reynolds one, but I mean, I think they went a little bit far with that.
Nah, I like that one better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of one of the most controversial cases.
Yeah, because
out there.
All the stories change, and I mean, there's what the book says.
Yeah, Anson wrote the book with the Lutzes. And
Yep. There's also documentaries from like one of the kids that was actually there, one of the Lutz kids.
But what you can't deny is that the murders that actually happened.
Yep.
To precipitate all of that.
But even though the stories changed from him.
Oh yeah, he changed stories. He was trying to claim a plea of insanity so he could get off, and then he did say, he goes, I really don't care what happens to me right now. He shot both his parents and 4 of his siblings.
Yep.
At point blank range, and just Ronald DeFeo Jr.
Yeah, it changed from, it was something was telling me to do it.
Yes, I heard voices and.
Yep. And then there was another one that he did it on his own, and then there was the latest one was that his sister was part of it. And they were only supposed to take out the parents, and the sister ended up shooting the younger kids.
And then he took
shot the sister.
Yes, I read that. He just passed away, actually, in March of this year.
We'll never know, I guess.
No, he passed in Albany, actually.
Yeah.
But it was a case that shocked the community, obviously, because of the murders.
Oh, absolutely.
And then it became a paranormal case when the Lutz family bought the house. And I guess it depends on who you talk to, because I've talked to some people that believe nothing ever happened there, other than the murders and stuff. So when the Lutzes move in, there was no paranormal this, no paranormal that. There's no demon in the basement. There was no the was it the pig or something?
The pig with the red eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
So none of that happened. But then I've also talked to people. I think the Warrens actually investigated
That
too.
Yes.
And I think they believe that there was something going on there too. That it was credible. So, I mean, but that was before we had. Well, 2 things were going on. We weren't as open-minded to the paranormal like we are today, back then. Second of all, it didn't have the benefit of social media and stuff like that to reach out to people quickly with stuff to show people. You know what I mean? So that was against it. And third of all, they didn't have the equipment and everything like we have, the technology that we could use to put in there and static cams and do all kinds of stuff and try to capture that stuff. So this was the old school Warrens. Her as the clairvoyant and him as a demonologist. And I mean, I have seen some photos from there when they show a little boy. I mean, if it is from that case and it is legit, then it is a pretty incredible.
Yeah, the little boy
shot.
in the staircase there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
They put it up next to the picture of one of the DeFeo kids, the youngest one, and it pretty damn close.
Right.
It could be him.
Well, you look at it this way: the Lutzes moved in December of 1975. 28 days later, they left, and they didn't take a thing with them.
Right.
They just left.
Right.
I mean,
Well, you did it for money. They just left their house in 28
Everything,
days
yeah.
just for money. They had a lot of problems after that too. You know,
financial problems. Yeah,
financial,
getting
their
divorced.
family.
Yep.
So I mean, I just think it's a little bit of a stretch to think that they would embellish that story and do all this other stuff and they just take off in the middle of the night. And it'd be just nothing but a hoax to try to raise millions of dollars for themselves or something like that.
Yeah.
The Warrens weren't the only one on that case. I believe Hans Holzer actually had a case there as well.
Yes.
Yeah, Han Holzer is a very well established, famous paranormal investigator. He's just not that celebrity level with the public. I mean, in the paranormal circles, he's well known.
Yeah,
but
he was
outside,
right around the same time as the Warrens coming up
Yes.
through.
Yep.
He just didn't. I mean, at the time, they about had the same celebrity level. The Hans Holzer's, passed away years back. His daughter has a show now, the Holzer Files.
Yes. Yep.
So that's
good show.
pretty much where his celebrity status is. He was more known for his books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that's kind of what the goal was, to go out and do these investigation cases and write books and sell them. Because writing a book by then would make you a hell of a lot more money than it does now, obviously. But because obviously with the distribution channels and people getting it like on Nook and this and that, they don't make it. But back then, if you wrote a book and it was successful, people buying millions and millions and millions of hard copies.
Well, that was the way to do it. I mean, Hans Holzer was the author to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
He would write the books, and that's how he made his money.
Yep.
The Warrens went a completely different route. I mean, a brand new route. They started the lecture circuit.
Yes.
In
in colleges.
Nobody really did that kind of thing where they go around and speak about this as an educational thing. I mean, there were people that were going around doing the spiritualism type stuff from the early 1900s as entertainment and stuff, but they actually did it more along the lines
But
of
did
education.
any of them charge to do this stuff?
I don't know if they charged for the lectures.
I know they charge for the lectures, but but no, to do the investigations.
No. Well, according to everything that Lorraine and Ed have written, they never charge for their investigations. I don't believe Hans Holzer charged either.
And I just wondered how these people made a living.
Well, that's it. Writing books and doing the lectures.
The lecture series, yeah.
Right.
I
But
mean, that's
it
what-
took
what
some
it is.
time. They just didn't go out and do the lectures overnight.
Yeah.
And were a huge hit. I mean, I know I worked in that market, so it takes some time, to get going and do that. But
Well, I mean, you've read the books like I have. I was a demonologist.
Ghost hunters.
Ed and Lorraine just had to get by doing things. Ed sold paintings
Yep.
and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Usually he would find a place like a house that would generally have a haunted story behind it. He'd paint it and then go to the house, show him the painting, and say, "You want to buy it?" Or
right.
Or get an
Yeah.
investigation out of it with Lorraine.
I'll give you this painting if I can go in and do the investigation.
Imagine that. Like a knock on the door. Hello, I painted your house.
Are you kidding me? When I read
Get out of
that,
here, you crazy son of a bitch. Pull a gun out.
when I read that, I'm like, I could do that. That's something I could do.
Kevin, I would just draw up with a scratch pad, draw a square with a thing, some crayons here.
I could paint it.
You
I
want
could
this?
paint
Just let me into your house, investigate it, and you can have this. It'll be worth something someday.
crayon drawing.
Crayon drawing with stick figures,
figure with
yep.
a sun in the corner.
Look! I mean, look. The resemblance is incredible. I've got a roof. You got four windows. I got four windows. I mean, come on. No one can do a better job than this.
All right, while we're on it, why don't we continue on with the Warrens?
Conjuring. Yeah, that was an excellent movie, by the way.
Oh,
It's
it
an
was.
excellent series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, James Wan does a great job.
Yeah.
He's very good director.
There's that element of something's going to jump out at you. I like that
Mhm.
when they put it in the movies. Again, a real case. I'm sure it's been embellished a little bit for the entertainment value, but it was a pretty horrific case that they had to deal with, it's just, I don't know. I have it on my iPad. I watch it every year. I bought that when they were basically before the streaming service became big. I bought it on iTunes. That in the first and the second one. So, but yeah, any of the paranormal stuff to me is more scarier than the horror movies of like, I don't know, like, God, Friday the 13th or any of that kind of stuff. Because this is the stuff I know can happen because I've seen some of it, and it can mess you up really bad. You know what I mean? There's no good intentions of this at all, other than just to terrorize you and break you down. So The Conjuring is another example of that. And whenever you mix that element of like witchcraft and, you know, and
infanticide.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff in there, man. You just that's a horrible cocktail you're mixing. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if you look at the backstories, I mean, they're even saying that the witch that the story was based on, you know, that whole story was embellished from who she actually was. That, you know, she didn't kill her kids or anything. Is that they died naturally, but everyone put that stigma on her because she had more than one child die. That, oh, she's doing it. But you know, where do the stories come from? This actually, if it happened, I'm gonna say it had to have happened. I mean, the Warrens have written about it and they've done that, and I don't know. I mean, it all stems from somewhere.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And if you read the, I think it was in the book The Ghost Hunters, and they had the Conjuring case file in there, and you can read about it. A lot of the stuff they had in the movie, although I'm sure it was Hollywooded up, was actually in the case file. The knockings, getting locked in the basement, the getting, you know, pushed, something grabbing them, oppressing them. So if you know, you kind of compare it to their case files, which is right from Ed wrote those books with a co-author.
And I'm sure that the shot of the little girl that was sleepwalking, but the photos were being taken, the sensors.
Yes.
So that actually happened.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a lot. Even though I said it's Hollywooded up, you know, they have to, like we were saying earlier, they have to take 10 years worth of investigations and condense it down to the highlights in an hour, so you're getting everything all at once.
Undertaking that is to basically, you know, all right, sit down with Lorraine Warren and write this out into a movie script. They're like, they must have like a big board of like creating a timeline, first of all. Where, okay, this happened, but when did it, you know, they have to put this whole thing together to create a flow, you know, that it all makes sense when you see it, you know, before they then go into, okay, now we're going to Hollywood it up, like the scary stuff and all that. But, I mean, taking and creating 90 minutes or 2 hours of film material is a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you got to make sure that your dates make sense, right? That the cars that the people drive and everything makes sense to the time. There's just a lot of stuff that has to go into making all that believable. Then they got to figure out, okay, what does a witch look like? What is this? I mean, you know, there's just so many elements to make that. So I give them a lot of credit to put that story together and make it scary. And it was.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything about it was really cool and well done. But the thing in real life is like, they make it scary. Like if you hear a knock, it's like, you know, really sinister and evil. People are like, oh, I probably never hear that. But we've been in investigations where we heard a knock, somebody knocks back. It's not that terrifying. It creeps you out a little bit, but you know, so I guess they have to create an element of like fear with everything that happens.
Usually in
the
movies, you hear the knock and you see everyone go.
Yeah, exactly.
In which in real life, it's like you hear a knock and you're like, "Is that you?
Yeah,
Was that you?
I didn't hear it. What'd you hear?
Who's in the hall? Did somebody just knock?"
Exactly. So, I mean, kudos on the Conjuring movies. That's amazing that Hollywood jumped onto the Warrens case files and brought us that to watch it. I mean, anytime we do a lecture, we always say how many people have seen The Conjuring, and
all the hands go up.
At least 75 to 80% of them have seen it. You know, it's great. It's great. It's a great thing to follow and watch. You know,
tell you what, that was actually a great thing for the paranormal field because I mean, it really brought Ed and Lorraine right to the forefront to people that have never even thought about this stuff before.
Their household names now.
Yeah, made it mainstream.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
And I think, you know, on our side of it, we see a lot more people more willing to say, well, maybe you guys could come and look at something for me because it's a little more acceptable now.
Yep.
You know, or before, I'm crazy. No, maybe,
maybe
not.
On the flip of the coin, it also made it a little bit more difficult in our field because we get a lot more people that are like, yeah,
it's a demon
floating. And
well, think of it this way. how many paranormal groups are around at the time that Ed and Lorraine Warren are doing their thing? It wasn't considered cool. You know, they were just doing their thing.
Known?
Right.
Ed, Lorraine, and Hans. That was it.
Then as soon as Ghost Hunters made it big on TV, there were ghost hunting groups just blown up across the map. You could literally look at the globe like beep, 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 beep. All these little dots on the just populated the maps. Like, you know, it's like this is Verizon's 5G coverage. This is the paranormal groups that has started. I remember doing events with Jason and Grant. I did one in Lilydale, and I remember all these teams coming through with matching T-shirts, and they had pocket protectors to pens and badges. I'm a paranormal investigator, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, wow. And I turned to Jason and I say, God, man, you guys started like a freaking revolution. He goes, yeah, there's a lot of them out there, man. Taps was like the big, even though they weren't the first. They were definitely like the big. I mean, they went mainstream as a paranormal group.
Oh yeah, they had their show on Sci-Fi.
They franchised and they did everything. You know, they're still big.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the next one. La, 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 la.
Go to la Lorraine.
Hey, question for you: how many people died in the Poltergeist?
None.
Exactly. What kind of horror movie is that? No one died.
I tell you what, it put a fear of clowns into a whole generation of people.
And actually, Steven Spielberg, he had a fear of clowns, and he had a fear of the shadows from the trees from when he was a kid growing up, and he put those in the movies because it scared him. Might as well use it to scare others.
It worked.
Yeah. But again, it's Steven Spielberg, so I mean, the guy's a freaking genius. So
who do you think the character of the little psychic medium was based on?
Zelda Rubinstein.
Yeah. Who do you think she was based on?
I think that was a Lorraine Warren character.
If you look at it, it's besides being short.
Yeah.
You know, everything else about her glass is the hair.
The hair in a bun.
The bun, you know.
The shawl. Did she have like a shawl, too, and everything?
It was like Lorraine Warren meets the clown from Spawn.
It was a really cool movie because what I liked about it is when the psychic medium came in to solve the problem and all that stuff was going on, she was like remaining completely calm and telling them what to do. Mm-hmm. You know, and all this, the wind's blowing at them and the light, and they're going to be sucked into God knows where, and she's completely calm, telling them what to do. Mm-hmm. You know, and I thought that was just kind of amazing. But it was a great story. You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
It was creepy, but it wasn't like over the top scary. But that's kind of maybe more realistic for a haunting. You know, in real life. Where things happen other than getting sucked into TV, but where things happen, but, you know, no one gets harmed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like, some things might be really over the top, like, you know, tearing off his own face. Or
right.
The meat crawling across the counter.
Yeah.
Right.
Skeletons coming out of the pool.
Right.
They moved the headstones. They didn't move the bodies.
But we never did a case that I know with a poltergeist. Now, poltergeist that's got to be something to really have a hard time to deal with as an investigator. How do you pin that down? I mean, what do you do with a poltergeist?
It's a difficult thing because you got to figure out why there's a poltergeist.
Right.
In the case of the movie Poltergeist, there was obviously unmoved graves underneath the home. We've run into cases like that. I don't know. I mean, the only thing you can really do is kind of, if you can move the bodies or, you know, come to terms with it and try to live with it.
Or just, like they did in the middle of the night, jump in your car and leave.
Just leave.
Now, wasn't there a poltergeist too?
Yes.
Yes.
Didn't seem to be as
the young
successful as the first one.
The young actress that played Carol Ann passed away shortly after they started filming.
Well, the sister in the first one
passed away, yeah. And so it was in a high rise. It really wasn't that great a movie.
I thought it was great. I love Poltergeist. I'm sorry.
The first one was amazing. The first one was amazing. The second one I couldn't really get into too much. It was that preacher that turned into a worm.
They brought back Zelda Rubinstein and all that. But,
yep. But what was interesting on Poltergeist 2 is they brought in the Indian shaman.
Yeah.
Because they said, well, and it's like seen in real life at like the Hinsdale. They did the exorcisms with the Catholic priests, and they said, well, that's not working. So they brought in some Native Americans that say, okay, well maybe it's the wrong type of medicine to use. So, and I kind of like that in
the
Poltergeist too.
incorporation of not every belief is Christianity.
Correct.
Yeah, don't ever dismiss the Native Americans, because they're the one true group of people that are spiritualists, that are connected to everything. You know what I mean?
Well,
Energy and the land and everything.
This was originally their land, so
Right.
I mean, if there's something going on that reaches further back than
Our history.
our history, then
But essentially all the things that were out there, I'm sure quite honestly, I'm sure the paranormal existed when they had this land too as well, and they connected to it. They knew what to do with it. Somehow they could speak with it and find out what it wants and stuff like that. So they're like just connected to like the aura, the energy of the planet. It's just hard to explain. They seem to have a way, or like you said, they have a some kind of ritual for everything.
Yeah, and they're more about appeasement than banishment.
Right. Or the Catholic Church is like, well, people are like, well, my house I think is haunted. I'm going to get a Catholic priest in. Well, unless basically is completely opposed and fears Catholic religion and God, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Where the Native Americans are like, well, we know what it has. We'll show you what to do to appease it.
And that's the point. As you guys just said, appeasing it is a big thing with their culture. Whereas, the Catholic Church is like, we'll send it away.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
you can't just
God
send it
will
away.
repel you,
Here first.
God will repel you. It's like people like, well, I got my house blessed. Okay, how many times have we told that? And the activity didn't start. Well, if your house is being infested with the spirit of a child or some grumpy old man that lived there, what is the priest going to do? He's going to like, the power of Christ compels you. He's going to sit there and watch. Like, okay. I mean, unless it is, then you have to deal with something that's demonic in order for that. Or something truly, maybe not demonic, but something truly evil that's repelled by. Otherwise, I mean, it's good to get your house blessed. Absolutely. I mean, that's a thing that people used to always do when they got a house.
Absolutely, yeah.
If basically have a minister or a priest come in. But I appreciate the Native Americans so much more because they seem to be in tune with the Catholic priests are like, okay, well, this is what the Lord preached. Where the Native Americans are like, this is what the land tells us. This is what, our people tell us. So it's like they seem
Everything is a spirit.
Right. They seem to understand. They like tapped into that whole spirit world, and they understand the purpose of it and what it does and how to work with it. Where, priests are like, oh shit, send an exorcist.
I'm sure if we're wrong about anything, Aaron or Chris will let us know.
Yeah, no, I respect the heck out of them.
Those guys have helped us out on many occasions, and they're great and they're fun. But along with with Poltergeist, I mean, if you think about it, it has a lasting effect with the paranormal. Because, I mean, how many times you have cases where someone's like, I found this and I brought it in the house, and the answer is, are you nuts? Have you ever seen Poltergeist?
Yeah. we do use that a lot.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We got two more.
Yeah, that was Paranormal Activity. That was creepy. That was kind of like the Blair Witch Project paranormal version.
Yeah.
Or
the first one was way creepier, I think, than the progressive ones. But they're all good in their own right. But the first one was just when they set up the camera in the bedroom and stuff. Just
and this is it's right along the lines of kind of like what they did with like Chucky. Chucky really built off the My Buddy doll craze, whereas Paranormal Activity really started picking up on when people started putting up cameras around their house and stuff like that, and now they're catching stuff on camera. So you got like cameras going up around the house is becoming the norm for a lot of people, and then there's a lot of people that are putting up cameras and catching things in their house that's becoming the norm on like YouTube and everything. So they caught right onto that craze. And then, I mean, their marketing technique was awesome in itself too, because they put it out there as this is an actual paranormal event happening. And now you have to go and tell your theaters, click on this to say, I want this in my theater in my area. And that was their marketing campaign for about 3 months, whereas they actually got people to submit basically petitions to get that to be a mainstay movie in the area.
Yeah, and much like Blair Witch, it was a shoestring budget. You know, it
Yep.
was just a couple, static cams that they threw around, and
Yeah, they explored the fact that it's like indie movie producers. It was like an indie movie. You know what I'm saying? That and people caught on to that craze. Like it's like a low budget indie movie. You're basically making a movie with you're going to B&H and buying a bunch of stuff, and you made a movie, and people love that. I think it's cool because the creativity's there, and they're kind of it's almost sometimes they're like they're thrown together as they go along, where they don't have the big Hollywood execs and the grips and the best boys and all that stuff going on. They just basically have a small team and and they're editing it on their MacBook and that's cool to see that they can produce stuff like that, and that's enjoyable. That was creepy. It was creepy because essentially you didn't know who that was, who was causing it. You know what I mean?
Toby.
So.
But at the same time, you actually you would think, oh my God, this is real. It looked
Right.
It looked legitimate. I mean, it looked like if we had set up a DVR system in a haunted house and this stuff was happening. I mean, granted, I don't think I've ever been into a house where this much activity happened on camera, because if it did, we would be showing a lot of that footage.
We'd be famous.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, as they went on and they did the sequels and the interdimensional stuff and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And it was kind of like, okay, now you're reaching a little bit, but
Jump the shark.
yeah, you have to. I mean, they're turning into money grabs, and that's what that was.
I watched the first two. I barely got through the second one.
They got another
Loved
one
the
out, I think,
first
this
one.
Halloween.
Yep. Yeah, that's
Seriously?
Next to Kin.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. It was like every year, every Halloween, they came out with another one.
Yep.
It's like The Purge.
But I mean that I'm going to say that there wasn't really a really bad aspect to the first movie.
No, it was
I mean,
very well
it
done.
was a great portrayal of actual paranormal activity that you might actually encounter in the field. All right, we got our final one here. Yeah, we got about a couple minutes left, so almost perfect. Here we go. Any guesses?
Tubular Bells?
I think I know where you're going with this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, The Exorcist. By far the scariest,
Absolute scariest.
most terrifying movie I've ever seen.
And I think it goes back to what you said earlier when you were saying certain movies scare you more because you've seen it, done it. Not that I've ever seen a demonic possession, but I believe it. I have my faith, and I believe it can happen. And that's what scares me about it. Is it's something, and it's based off a true case. But so it's just one of those things that movie scares me because I watch it and go, that could really happen.
I was a kid, and I watched that because my neighbor down the street had HBO. And this is back when HBO used to give those little books, in the mail, and you see what movies are in it, and that's Halloween, The Exorcist. I've never seen these. So it was on at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. I still remember like the old school HBO, and then they rated R. And then I watched it, and then I had to walk home after that. And holy crap, was I scared, man. I only had to walk like 5 houses up the street. But, man, it seemed like it took me a long time to get 5 houses. Every tree was, like, moving, and it was just weird. I mean, that like, got into into me. You know what I'm saying? It got, like, under my skin, and it really, it was
based off.
That was creepy.
It was a 1948 case.
Yep.
Roland Doe.
Yep.
It was a 13-year-old boy in Maryland. And if you read the case files on that, it's not that everything that happened in the movie. Again, they have to Hollywood it up to make it, and it happened over the course of
But there were things that happened in the real case that were like, if you put that in the movie, that would still be like, you would think that's a Hollywood thing. Like he actually reached into the mattress, pulled out a spring, and stabbed the priest.
Maimed him for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was at Georgetown University, the hospital. He was there.
And it was like it was so vulgar. The movie.
Yeah.
It was just like vulgar.
But
it wasn't scary. Also, it was just like it was defiling and stuff, and it was just like, oh.
And
God.
that's the way that the boy, that Roland Doe was. They said he was. They were bringing him to get baptized. I guess he was going off on his uncle, and it kind of translated to the movie. I think when the priests were there, some of the stuff he had said. but he was going off on his uncle. You think I'm effing going to this? And he was just vulgar, and blasphemous, and going off on his uncle because he wasn't going to get baptized.
Yeah, it was a horrible movie.
It was a good movie.
I'm just wondering if there's a way I could take it back and never unsee what I saw. But yeah, that's like the worst, highest level of any kind of possession thing. I think any person, paranormal investigator, will ever be involved in. That was just
they had a good marketing campaign.
Oh.
After it was in theaters, people were throwing up in the theaters, people were passing out and stuff like that.
It's disturbing.
I do know that
it is disturbing.
That when my sister was real young, I think she was, she had to have been like 3 or 4 when that came out. And my mom told me that when she went to the movie theater to see it with my father, and then she did not sleep for like 2 weeks. She sat by my sister's bed, just scared out of her wits that it would actually happen.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, what did they say? The author, William Peter Blatty, that wrote it, because he was reading the article in like 1949. It happened in 1948, but he was reading it in 1949 in the Washington Post, and he's like, "This would make a great story." So he researched a lot of it, as far as he could go. And then they said, out of respect for the family, because he didn't want to kind of tie it in, he changed the sex of the child to a female, and changed some other things around just so that it wouldn't get tied too closely. But yeah, I mean, if you read what happened with this Roland Doe, I mean, stuff was happening in school. The desks were levitating and shaking. His friends' desks were levitating and shaking. His bed was doing it. That actually happened with the bed flopping around and levitating. The whole thing was started. His aunt had passed away, and he heard scratching in the walls, so they thought it was the aunt trying to communicate. The mother asked the aunt to please stop and go away, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And like you said, a lot of the stuff that happened in the movie, although it was probably embellished a little bit, had a basis of the case. It actually happened at some point in the case. Like the family moved from Maryland to St. Louis to try to get away from everything, and carved in his rib cage was Lewis. So they said, and there's no way that the boy could have done it. So the words were coming up. He was getting scratched. He's just sitting there, and they'd watch scratches form on his chest. He talked in a very raspy, like an old man voice. They said that forget the second place he went to where they tried to perform another exorcism, that the Jesuit priest would wear rubber garments under their clothes because he'd urinate on them, and he'd just, defile them and stuff. So they'd wear stuff so they didn't, get soaked with all his bodily fluids. It just, like you said, it was a defiling movie, but the actual case is pretty,
Yeah.
The case actually had more stuff than the movie, besides the priest that committed suicide at the end after he became possessed. Yes. But
honorable mention, if we're talking about the exorcism, is honorable mention is the exorcism of Emily Rose. Yep. If you ever saw that,
excellent movie. Yes,
that was disturbing as well.
Yes,
and I remember going to see a lecture. I think it was John Zaffis' lecture, and he had a tape recorder. He played a piece of the actual exorcism that was done, and it was disturbing.
Yes, they played some of that at the end of the movie, I believe, that the actual audio files of her talking.
Disturbing.
And not the disturbing thing, but it was her faith that brought her through, but it eventually killed her. And they said, no, we don't want to do all this. I'm going to go by faith alone, because even though my physical body may die, my eternal soul will go to heaven. So, I mean, it's just, the faith was amazing with her in the actual case.
Yeah, that was based on Annalise, though, wasn't it? Like, they called it Emily Rose, but it was based on the case of Annalise.
Yeah, she was German, right?
Yep. Pete did make a comment and said the movie Possessed is the full story that's based on the diary of Father Halloran, who did the exorcism for the Doe case.
Oh. Possessed.
We said that together.
I see that.
Yeah, cool.
Well, is that all of them, my friend?
That is all the movies I have.
Wow. Those are definitely some good ones, man. And Exorcism would have definitely been on the top of my list for the paranormal movies I would never want to be involved in. And you know, probably by far the scariest, most disturbing. You know, I'm just like, they let people like watch. They put it on like paid TV and the movies and stuff, and it's just like, it was like, I mean, back then it was, you know, some of the stuff was like fucking almost pornographic. You know, it was
some
just
of it was really
ridiculous.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, and then of course you meet Linda Blair, like we did at Scaricon, and I almost wanted to say something to her. So what was that like? Doing some of that, I mean, just you know, when she was a kid,
13 or whatever, and she did the movie, yeah, so she was young.
Could you imagine letting your daughter, 13-year-old daughter, do that movie, and that's going on? I would have been appalled. I would have grabbed her. It's like, we're done here, you know. But maybe the parents got a nice little.
Well, I'm sure they did.
So
why don't we go out to lunch today, Mom? We'll treat you. Just well, she's fine on set by herself.
So that's it. We went over our top 8. Thank you, Kevin, for putting those graphics on there. And actually,
way,
Kevin
Pete did make a comment that
what did he
said
say?
She wasn't acting in the movie.
Pete didn't really care for her. That's another story. Pete will come on another episode and tell you about his Linda Blair
I think
experience.
he brought it up in a couple of episodes. You're just going to have to go back and watch.
Yeah, he probably did. So
well, we heard all about it on the way out to the lecture in Ovid there. He told me the whole thing.
Yeah, he's very vocal about that, his whole experience. So look at that, 8 o'clock on the nose.
No, it's 7 after. That clock is wrong.
Oh, thanks, Todd, for keeping a clock here. We're like, wow, we're doing well in our time. And I look at my Apple Watch. I'm like 8:07. I'm like,
just like the movies, that clock is embellished.
Yes, something's going on. There's some paranormal activity going on here at Disruption Studio, I think. So thank you everyone for listening in. Halloween's coming up this next weekend here. It's probably going to be weird. Does anyone really know what's going on? Are there going to be trick-or-treaters, or are they doing trunk-or-treat?
I'm doing trick-or-treat in my house.
In my house. The houses are too far apart. Nobody wants to go up to the...
Yeah.
I live in the village. I get a lot. I give out full-size candy bars, so...
Yeah, we're going to Travis's.
Yeah, we're going to Travis's house.
Trick-or-treat. Aren't you a little old?
I got a box full of costumes if you want, Rich. We can just keep on switching.
Well, he's got a thing where he goes up on the second story and, like... The candy fires out.
The Utica. Yeah, it launches right out.
Yeah,
for adults, I went to the liquor store. I got a bunch of little bottles of liquor for the adults. So,
like I said, we're going to Travis's house. At Travis's house on Halloween. So, everyone have a very nice and safe Halloween, please. I mean, it's hopefully we'll be able to go out there. The weather will hold out, and the kids can do their trick or treating. I can imagine having an October 31st without being able to go trick or treating as a little kid.
Again, thank you to Disruption Network for letting us in again.
Yeah, I mean, we had to knock at the door like 20 times. Yeah. Todd, let us in. No, we're not doing this show no more.
Unfortunately, left the back door unlocked, so we got in.
Well.
But again, if there's any stories, anything that you want to see us do an episode on, reach out to us. Reach out to us on Facebook. You can either do Agent Paranormal or Disruption, whichever is easier for you. Just reach out and say, hey, I want you to do a show about this. We're always looking for topics.
Just as long as not The Exorcist.
Yeah. But other than that, I think that's all we got for Agent Paranormal and the Silver Screen.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Make sure you follow us on Facebook at Agent Paranormal, and we hope to see your smiling faces on another episode very soon. Everyone have a great night.
Good night.
Scary later.